Hey guys, Ultra Maximus back with another video. This time I thought I'd do a versus video, and what better rivalry than DC Comics versus Marvel Comics. So we're going to take a look at 11 different categories, including heroes, villains, movies, TV, toys, video games, collectibles and props, anime direct movies, styles and universe, crossovers, and stories or graphic novels, and see who comes out on top. Alright, so in our first round, it's hero versus hero. While Marvel has characters like Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Hulk, Captain America, Wolverine, and the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, on the DC side, we've got iconic heroes such as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and so many more. And this is a really tough category because these characters are all iconic in their own rights. I would say probably Spider-Man and the Hulk are the top of the list for the Marvel heroes as far as, infamy. However, quite frankly, you cannot go to anywhere on the face of the earth and someone not know who Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman are. When you ask the common person, name a superhero, 9 times out of 10, it's either going to be Superman or Batman. Winner, DC Comics. Alright, so round 2 is going to go villain versus villain. Now, Marvel has got some great heavyweights. You've got Magneto, Venom, Carnage, the Rhino, Doctor Doom. You've got, on the DC side, the Joker, Sinestro, Lex Luthor, Bizarro. It's kind of funny because the Marvel villains, some of the best ones come from Spider-Man and the X-Men, while DC, some of the best villains come from Batman and Superman. But they both have classic villains. And, quite frankly, I like the villains best of the comics because they're the most interesting and generally the most dynamic of characters. So, when we look at the villains, who's more iconic? Well, quite frankly, it seems that Lex Luthor and the Joker are probably some of the most renowned villains in comic book history. Although Magneto is bringing up, the slack in the Marvel movies. So, where do we stand? Winner, DC Comics. Alright, round 3, movies. So, DC really kind of started the whole movie craze with Superman the movie back in the 1970s. And they really brought it back in the 1980s with the Tim Burton Batman films. And of course, we've had some iconic films like Watchmen and The Dark Knight. And of course, the Chris Nolan trilogy. Man of Steel was okay. It was good. There's issues. Superman Returns was not a big fan favorite, and neither was Green Lantern. And then you've had some Marvel movies that weren't all that great. Like some of the Punisher films were not, fan faves, or Ghost Rider, or Daredevil. But you have mega blockbusters on the Marvel side, like X-Men, X-Men First Class, both Spider-Man sets, the Avengers, the Iron Man movies. It just flat out, Marvel has made an empire in the movie industry. Winner, Marvel Comics. Alright, so round 4 is going to television. So DC Comics actually, and Marvel Comics, have been in the television business for a long time. DC started out with the 1960s Batman. We had Wonder Woman in the 70s, along with series like mega hit series like Smallville, misfires like Birds of Prey, and new hit series like Arrow. upcoming Flash and Gotham, whereas Marvel has the mediocre Shield going on right now, the campy Spider-Man show from the 70s, of course the successful Incredible Hulk in the 70s and 80s, the misfire of Mutant X, and Blade. Just Marvel is really kind of just there, whereas DC has, well, a proven track record with television shows. Winner, DC Comics. Alright, round 5, it's toy versus toy. So, DC Comics, they've got some good toys out there. The DC Universe line is fantastic. Of course, you had the superpower toys in the 80s, and there's some really great hot toys that are out there. Of course, Marvel also has some great toys. They get their Marvel's Legends. There's also a Marvel Universe line out there. There's fantastic Spider-Man toys. You had the Secret Wars toys in the 80s and the X-Men toys. They had great, fantastic hot toys that are out there. And they also had Transformer Marvel toys. So, yeah, both really good stuff. But one, I think, just kind of out of sheer coolness, ekes the other out barely. Winner, Marvel Comics. Round 6, we're taking a look at video games. So, yeah, this is kind of an interesting mixed bag. You had back in the 80s with the Ataris, probably two of the most popular superhero games were Superman and Spider-Man. I know I had both of them. In the 80s, you had, really cool Nintendo game for the 1989 Batman film. But in the 90s, Marvel really came into its own with the arcade games, with all the Capcom games, the X-Men versus the Avengers, Marvel versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom, all those cool games. And then, after the turn of the century here, we get really killer games out of DC, like Injustice and DC versus Mortal Kombat, the Batman Arkham series. You've got the kid-friendly Batman Lego series, and then, well, you get really cool games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the Marvel Legos, and the Marvel Superhero Squads. So, it's a really, really heavy blow on both sides. In the category of video games, I call a draw. Points awarded to DC Comics and Marvel Comics. Round 7 is going to go to Collectibles and Prop Replicas. This excludes things like statues and vinyl model kits and the such, because they're pretty equal on both terms, I think. So this is things like movie prop replicas, comic book prop replicas, those type of things. So on the Marvel side, you can get cool stuff like Captain America's shield, Thor's hammer. You can get Iron Man's mask and gauntlets. You can even get Wolverine's claws, although those really don't work for me too much. However, on the DC side, there is a plethora of things. You've got tons of variation of Batarangs and Batman's equipment and utility belts. You can get Superman's cape. You can get Kandor, the city in the bottle from Superman. All of Wonder Woman's gear. Green Lantern's lantern and so many variations of his ring. Sinestro's ring. All the Rainbow Lantern cores. You can get Kryptonite, red, green, blue, whatever you're looking for. There is just so much stuff that DC has put out as far as props and replicas go. Winner, DC Comics. Alright, in category number 8, it's animated movies. Marvel has had some pretty decent ones. The Hulk Versus was a great double feature. The Invincible Iron Man. I really liked Doctor Strange. Thor was pretty decent. I really love Next Avengers. Ultimate Avengers 1 and 2 were okay. And then you've got the DC side with like Return of the Joker from Batman Beyond. You've got Justice League films like Doom and War. New Frontier, Crisis on Two Earths, Wonder Woman was great. You had Batman Superman Apocalypse, the animated Dark Knight Returns from the Frank Miller book, and of course, there was a feature film of Mask of the Phantasm. So which of these two comic book companies prevailed on animated films? Winner, DC Comics. Alright, and category number 9 is style and universe. While the DC universe is very, I would say, kind of clean, well, except for Gotham, it's very fantastical and heroic for the most part, I think. Where a lot of the characters are either aliens, they've gained their powers by some incredible feat, or they're some kind of mythological character. Whereas the Marvel Universe is a lot more grounded, more realistic. People are mutants. They're given powers by radiation or atomic situations. And a lot of the times their stories are very apocalyptic and just dreary and dark. So, yeah, two very, very distinctly different universes. Winner, Marvel Comics. Alright, in our 10th category we have crossovers. And, well, both have really crossed over a lot. Now, Marvel is really more known for crossing over in their own books dramatically. The X-Men are always coming up against other foes. Spider-Man is renowned for visiting other comics. He even visits the Transformers at one point. Whereas DC Comics primarily cross over with other franchises. Of course, both comic book companies have had several crossovers over the years, and they even mixed the characters together in Amalgam Comics, which was a lot of fun. Marvel's crossed with DC, Batman, Punisher, Star Trek. There's Batman versus Predator, Superman versus Aliens, Batman versus Judge Dredd, Spawn and Batman. There are just crossovers out the yin-yang for both of these companies. In the category of crossovers, it is a draw. Points are awarded to DC Comics and Marvel Comics. Alright, and our final category are epic story arcs and graphic novels, and both have some really good stuff in them. You've got the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Wars out of Marvel, the Secret Wars from the 80s, X-Men Inferno, Spider-Man Reign was great. There was the Civil War series, Alex Ross's Marvels, which was just fantastic. And on the DC side, you've got some really great books out of the 80s. Of course, you had Crisis on Infinite Earths. You had The Death of Superman in the 90s. The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, which is a classic staple of comic bookdom out of the 80s. The Killing Joke, again, Alex Ross coming at it with Kingdom Come. And the book that is said to have saved the comic book genre, Watchmen by Alan Moore. And that brings the winner to an 8-5 victory, DC Comics. It was a hard battle, it was a long battle, and it was a fun battle. Looking at both comic book companies and breaking them apart to see which one really is cooler. I don't know about cooler, but at least in my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you like DC Comics better or Marvel Comics better? Please leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please thumbs up, or if you hated it, thumbs it down. Leave a comment, share it, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys, and look for more videos in the future.